'Tis the season, and many Chargers fans are wondering if they could get an early Christmas present with wide receiver Diontae Johnson, but they probably should be ready to get Cole.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Droegemeier, and we've been covering the Chargers together now for 9 seasons, but this is our 7th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you all for making us your first listen. We appreciate the everydayers out there, and to make sure that you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Well, Daniel, wide receiver Diontae Johnson made the naughty list because the Baltimore Ravens dismissed him because he refused to enter the ball game. Can he turn it around and make the nice list by joining the Chargers? We'll have to find out. And will the Chargers win a playoff game? Can they win a playoff game? I'll tell you this. That's definitely what I want for Christmas this year. And will the Chargers make a reunion with one of their all-time greats, Keenan Allen, in 2025?
Or will he be a Grinch? But you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $250 in bonus bets. $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. David, it is buy or sell Monday. We were always going to get into buy or sell today, but instead, it is the season, and it's the season to switch things up a little bit. So today, we are going naughty or nice because we are being festive, and it's going to be a lot of fun because we have a hot topic to start here with Diontae Johnson, a player who was a hot commodity amongst Chargers trade forums around the trade deadline, a potential wide receiver who wasn't doing well or really wasn't going anywhere in Carolina. Many Chargers fans wanted him. Reportedly, the Chargers at least checked in on him. He went for almost nothing, so everyone was like, well, I would have made that trade. Now we can see that with the Ravens, it was a disaster. He never found his footing. 1 catch in 4 games, refused to go into a game. So, David, it's this. Naughty or nice, the Chargers will get Diontae Johnson.
Yeah, I, as much as Charger fans out there would absolutely love the shiny new toy of Diontae Johnson under their Chargers Christmas tree, unfortunately, he pissed off the current Chargers head coach's brother, John Harbaugh. And as you all know, Jim and John are very, very close. And if you don't think that they talk to each other, you are sadly mistaken. So I just don't think there is any universe in which they take a player that refused to play to join their football team. I just think it's something that could alter the culture. It could change the way they have things going on. And also, quite frankly, I think it's just a little bit too late to bring somebody into the fold if that, has probably a marginal way of affecting the game at this point to make a big enough impact to justify the move. I just don't see it happening. So I'm going naughty.
Yeah, I think I have to say naughty too, just because I think, first of all, you see the lack of impact that many of the wide receiver additions happened at the trade deadline. All of those moves, it's been pretty negligible as far as the actual impact, whether it's, Amari Cooper, whether it's Diontae Johnson, whether it's Mike Williams or whoever. At the same time, we know there was interest, but you're right. I mean, it's hard for me to imagine that this is a Harbaugh guy, right? If we're talking about Harbaugh guys, if he's not a John Harbaugh guy, it's hard to imagine he's a Jim Harbaugh guy. I think the hard part of it is like, in a vacuum, it seems like it would be a good move. The waiver claims start at 1 p.m. Pacific time today, so we could find out something today. But after seeing, what his frustrations were in that offense, not being the main target in that offense, what is he going to react like if he's not the number 1 target in LA? Because he's not going to be. It's going to be Ladd McConkey. That being said, could you reform him? Could the strong leader, Jim Harbaugh and John Harbaugh are 2 very different dudes in some ways.
Yeah.
Could you rehabilitate him? Do you have a strong enough culture to be able to bring him in and be able to get him to get that buy-in into having a lesser role? Because, the fact of the matter is, when he was the number 1 option in Pittsburgh, he's had some good seasons. When he's been the number 1 option, even in Carolina, he had a couple of good games this year. So that brings to the next buy or sell, which is just this, David. Buy or sell, the Chargers offense would be better with Diontae Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an easy nice. It's not that Diontae Johnson doesn't have the skill set or doesn't have the ability. Like just like you said before, he got shipped out of Carolina. Like he was pretty productive. I mean, he had 357 yards, 3 touchdowns, 20 first downs that he was able to generate in about 7 games. So like it's not like he wasn't able to move the ball. He even had a 120 plus yard game in the beginning of the season. So he's already he showcased this year like that if he gets the target volume, he can definitely make an impact on the game. That just hadn't really happened for him. He didn't get any kind of chance with the Baltimore Ravens after that trade. They didn't really use him as a focal point of that offense. Obviously, there's a lot of mouths to feed over there, a lot of different players you want to get the ball to, including the quarterback, including a monster of a running back with Derrick Henry. So a lot of mouths to feed, and obviously with a kind of a little bit of a diva receiver, right? They want the ball, and that's just not an offense that was going to give them the ball. And that's not going to be an offense you're going to get the ball in this one here with the Chargers either. So I don't think much of it is going to change. But would he add like talent to the team? I think, undisputably, absolutely yes.
It's definitely a nice, I mean, you're talking about someone who, if he's anything close to what you've seen at his best, he's instantly your wide receiver too. That's just the fact of the matter. I mean, he's behind Ladd McConkey and ahead of Quentin Johnson and Josh Palmer. And I mean, even to just kind of further illustrate that, I mean, Diontae Johnson has had 3 games of 78 or more receiving yards this season in Carolina. Quentin Johnston and Josh Palmer have combined for 2 of those games this year. Each of them has hit that number exactly 1 time. So he would 100% add talent. I absolutely understand why Chargers fans would be like, look at our wide receiver room. It needs talent. This is a guy who's obviously talented. He put up a 1,000-yard season in Big Ben's last season, and he still put up 2 700-plus yard seasons with Kenny Pickett at quarterback. And if anyone saw Kenny Pickett, I mean, that's not the best. All right, no. He would absolutely add. In a perfect world, if he was playing all out, if he fully bought in, he would definitely add to your offense. You just have to wonder whether Jim Harbaugh and Joe Ortiz are willing to give him that chance. And I think that's where our next voicemail comes in, is just wondering if there is any bad part of this that could happen if you do sign him.
Daniel, David, this is Jackson here. My buy or sell for Monday. With the Ravens waiving Diontae Johnson, there's no harm in giving Diontae Johnson a practice squad spot in the event that we get more injuries on our receiving core. What say you?
So this is obviously a scenario where he's not claimed, because the waiver claims work like this. Every team has a chance to put a waiver in, and depending on your waiver order, that is who ends up getting him if you put the claim in. We and David talk about it. Chargers Wire put out the 3 teams that Ian Rappaport has mentioned to keep an eye on, right? Not an official report. Ian Rappaport said to keep an eye on the Chargers, keep an eye on a reunion with the Steelers, and keep an eye on the Chiefs. Out of all those teams, the Chargers have the highest waiver priority. So if it's out of those 3 and they want to put a claim in, they can get him. To sign him to the practice squad, he would have to clear waivers. Nobody would have to pick up what his current contract is. And then you could sign him to the practice squad. And then also, the other thing that comes with that, David, is the chance to kind of go over with him what it's going to be, right? What the role looks like, what he'd be buying into. That's a little bit different. I mean, I think I'd have to say that's nice. I mean, I don't see, if he's a practice squad guy, I'm actually somewhere in between. Are you going naughty or nice on this one?
Yeah, as far as like, putting on a waiver claim and like basically having to put him on the roster, I'm a naughty on that. I don't think that, with his conduct and his actions lately and his lack of production on the football field would warrant that spot, in my opinion. Now, a practice squad spot, yeah, I'm all about that, because then it's like, hey, this is exactly what we're going to use you for. This is what we need you for. And if you don't like it, then you're not going to play. And we don't really care, because you're going to be on the practice squad. And so you either are going to get with the program or you're not, and you're not going to play. The choice is up to you.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess we erred in not calling it the opportunity squad, because that's what Jim Harbaugh has been calling it. And I think that signing him to the practice squad already, I think, shows you a certain level of humility, right? Not getting signed to the active roster. And this is obviously in a scenario where he wants to come here. The Chargers want him, and the only room is for a practice squad spot. The only thing is, the naughty part of this is, if you have really good chemistry in that wide receiving core, in that wide receiver room, those practice squad guys are in those meetings too. Is that going to disrupt what's already a good thing? You have to weigh that with also, okay, well, how much can you worry about personality and stuff like that when you're just not getting enough out of that room right now? So I totally understand Chargers fans want him. I don't think it'll happen after he literally just got exiled from Baltimore, which is Joe Ortiz's front office and Jim Harbaugh's brother's team, obviously. But I understand why people would want him, because he would absolutely add talent to that room. And he would say, hey, if he's at his best, the Chargers could be better offensively. But doesn't seem like that's going to happen. Unfortunately, doesn't feel like it's the right fit right now. But the Chargers right now are in a good spot, 1 win away from a guaranteed playoff spot. But once they get to the playoffs, what are they going to do? That's a big question. Can JK Dobbins be the difference in the Chargers actually picking up a playoff win under Jim Harbaugh? We're talking about all that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys about Prize Picks, because Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. And Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy, because unlike on other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. And they also have great promotions like Taco Tuesdays, where they will discount select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. And it's the best way to get action on most sports, including California, Texas, and Georgia, states that we live in. You may have missed the Chargers game, but you can still get action on tonight's game between the Packers and the Saints. I'd be going with the more thans on the Packers. I'm probably staying away from the Saints, but it's as easy as this. You go more or less on Jordan Love to throw for 232.5 passing yards, and combine that with Christian Watson to have more or less than 47.5 receiving yards. If you hit those, you win. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get that $50 instantly when you play that $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. David, let's continue this naughty or nice show today, as we do, getting into the biggest Charger storylines and overreactions around this time. And Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to all of our fans, the everydayers out there. We know everyone's going to be running around. We appreciate you guys making us a priority when we know you have a lot going on. But let's get to this next naughty or nice here, because Matthew Dodd says, naughty or nice, if this team gets healthy JK Dobbins back, we can grit and grind a win in the playoffs. David, are you naughty or nice on this one?
Yeah, the Chargers have desperately missed the explosive playmaking ability of J.K. Dobbins in the backfield. I think it was great to see what Gus Edwards did in the Thursday night football game against the Broncos. That's been a few and far between performance. J.K. Dobbins has been a little bit more consistent with his ability to break those big runs. And so I think, the formula for the Chargers is quite simple in principle. It's, hey, run the ball, hit those play action shots, protect your quarterback on defense, stop the run, and be able to, get your opponent in 3rd and long situations and unleash your pass rush. Like, that's what the formula is for the Chargers to win football games. Are they going to be able to do it? I don't know. We'll see. I mean, the margin for error in the playoffs is so small, but I am a much firmer believer in their prospects with Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh. So I am going to go nice. I do believe the Chargers can win a playoff game. Obviously, we'll see who that opponent is going to be, and that may change how I feel about their ability to pick up that playoff win. But I do feel like they have the elements needed, especially with a J.K. Dobbins that's hopefully coming back from this injury with fresh legs going into the playoffs. He's able to give it his all.
Yeah, it's going to be, to me, I would say nice, as far as I don't think it's impossible anymore for the Chargers to get a playoff win. And after, losing 3 out of 4, the way they lost to teams like the Ravens and the Buccaneers, it just kind of felt like, okay, well, this is not a playoff team. It's a team that might make the playoffs, but it's hard to have any confidence they're going to do something when they get there. Having J.K. Dobbins back is your best chance for a playoff win. That's nice, 100%. The naughty thing for me is kind of the thought that they can win one no matter who it is. Because to me, I think this is so much dependent on where they get seated. And I don't like the way kind of things are shaping up right now in the AFC playoff picture. Because if the Steelers had beat the Ravens, I think that would have been beneficial to the Chargers. I think having a chance to get the Steelers in the first round, I think the Chargers with a healthy Justin Herbert can beat that Steelers team. I think that's a good matchup for them. I think there's a few different matchups that they could do it. I mean, maybe they can catch the Steelers now. Maybe the Steelers do go on a little bit of a slide here. They do have the Chiefs coming up on the schedule too. Maybe they go on a little slide, right? There's a non-zero chance that you could still get them, but it looked a lot nicer when they had, the AFC North wrapped up, and you were basically going to get, a 6 seed going up against a 3 seed. Because if it ended today, that's what it would be. It'd be Chargers Steelers. I'd give the Chargers a chance in that game.
Yeah.
The problem is if the Ravens overtake them, do you still want the 6th seed? And you might be locked into it because the Broncos have a game against the Cincinnati Bengals where they're, according to FanDuel, 3-point underdogs going into that.
Yeah.
So they could lose, right? It could change up a lot at the bottom. But I think if you get the Texans, if you get the Steelers, God, even if you get the Chiefs, I'm 100% giving the Chargers a chance in that game and feeling good about that matchup in year one of Jim Harbaugh, that they can go get it done. If it's the Bills, if it's the Ravens, that's when I stop feeling good about it. And those feel like they could be going into those territories, blowout potentials, and just making it kind of feel bad that they made it, even though it's an obvious positive for this team and a sign that they're going in the right direction. But let's get to this one here, because this is an interesting scenario that could play out over the last couple of weeks from Oregon Charger, who says, naughty or nice, the Chargers will rest all their starters in week 18 if they win against New England, take care of business, even though that final game is against the Raiders. So we know the Chargers will win. If they win, they're in this weekend. Their magic number is 1. But there still could be some playoff seeding on the line. I think this is probably in a scenario where you have nothing to gain, kind of like we saw 2022 Chargers, Broncos. David, are you naughty or nice in the thought of the Chargers potentially resting their starters in week 18?
With the way things are shaking out, it seems like there's going to be something to play for as far as playoff seeding is all the way through the rest of this season. So with that being said, I think this is going to be a naughty here. I think that they are going to try to continue to win because they could advance their playoff seeding and get a matchup that they may deem to be more favorable. And selfishly, I want to see the Chargers sweep 2 out of the 3 of their division opponents, which they have not done in a very, very long time. So that's what I want to see. And also, I just want to cruise into the playoffs on a nice little 3-game winning streak, everything firing on all cylinders, peaking at the right time, and going to the dance, feeling good, looking good, and ready to go play.
Yeah, if there's no stakes attached to it, I hope that Jim Harbaugh desperately sits their starters. I do not want to see a
if there's nothing to gain, then yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what this is going for. I mean, obviously, if you have something to play for, why would you rest your starters, right? I think this is a scenario where there's nothing for you to gain by doing it, which there's also a good chance, the way things are shaking out, that you're going to be locked into that spot, in the 6th spot, and you're not going to have, a way to really change who you're going to play. And other things could change around you depending on if other teams win or lose. That's really what it's going to come down to. You rest your starters. I mean, you have a chance to get a full-blown bye week, basically, going into the playoffs when you know you're a team that is a mash unit in certain positions. Obviously, if you have something to play for, you play for it. If you don't have anything to play for, that's where things get a little interesting, because I think Jim Harbaugh, in his first stint in the NFL, always had something to play for in week 16 or week 17 in those days. But he played his starters in every one of those games. So no matter what the situation was in his first, go around in the NFL, he was playing his starters in week 17. I just don't think that, I think they always had something to gain from it. So I think they'll have something to play for. If not, absolutely give them that extra rest. Let's get this last buy or sell brought to our attention by the last game, David, which is this: naughty or nice, Scott Matlock is a weapon.
Easy, nice here for the redheaded, bearded god, Scott Matlock. It's been great to watch him. Honestly, the Chargers took a defensive lineman that was in a rotation, that was still trying to find his footing in the NFL, turned him into a two-way player, making him a fullback, and you've been able to see him grow every single game, week after week after week, putting himself in position to make good blocks, and not only just good blocks, but technically good blocks, to be able to get the running back sprung on big runs. That's happened more and more often as the season has gone by. And hey, you just saw Scott Matlock just dead leg somebody out of their shoes and pick up a first down. And reminder, Scott Matlock is 300 plus pounds. So men that big are not supposed to make defensive linemen or even linebackers look that bad in the open field. And yet Scott Matlock did. So easy, nice. It's been fun to watch Scott Matlock play football this year.
Yeah, very nice on this one. A weapon, like you said, as a fullback, as a pass catcher. I mean, I still think I'd probably have him in open space as far as my, who I would want to see over like a Tucker Fisk. Give me a Scott Matlock at 300 pounds running around and, guys trying to tackle him that way. Should have been his second first down of the season. I think that was part of where you kind of saw the growth from him, because he did have that play on the sidelines where he went out of bounds ended up being a 3rd and 1 early in the season when he caught it. And then they ended up not getting that 3rd and 1. It's like he could have easily gotten it, just went out of bounds, didn't really have that awareness. Much better now. I mean, out of anyone that played at least 10 snaps, I mean, Darius Davis was the highest graded offensive player for the Chargers with 8 snaps. Scott Matlock was second highest grade on the Chargers offense last week in that win over the Broncos. So great to see from Scott Matlock. That double block he had to spring that Gus Edwards 43-yard run to take both of the linebackers out and just see really both those linebackers not want the smoke and taking him on in that hole. That was something that was really fun to watch. And I mean, giving Gus Edwards a full head of steam heading into a secondary is always going to be a winning proposition.
Breaking people's will.
I mean, you saw he gave a nasty stiff arm on that run too. But Scott Matlock was a huge influence on the positive plays the Chargers had last week in the run game and the pass game. He has become a bona fide fullback and a positive impact on this offense. But we still have more to get into because it is naughty or nice, getting into the biggest Charger storylines and overreactions. And one of the things some Chargers fans want for Christmas is potentially Keenan Allen back with the Chargers in 2025. So we're going to talk about that and if Joey Bosa will still be around as the last San Diego Charger and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys about FanDuel because the NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's twice what it was last week. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. And I love seeing what they're thinking, like the lines being already out for this next game with the Chargers headed to Foxborough in a tough place to play against a Patriots team that just gave the Bills a run for their money this weekend. The Chargers are 5.5-point favorites going east. It's going to be a tough game, and I think they're telling you that, but it's not just who wins the game. You can also bet on which players will score touchdowns, how many points each team will score, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com to join today for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. David, let's get into the rest of our naughty or nice list to see what we're getting for Christmas this year as Chargers fans, but thank you to all the everydayers for making us your first listen, especially when you're all running around during the holidays. And we thank you guys, as always, for listening every day. But if you guys need a second listen, make sure to check out the new slate at Locked On NFL, where they have 2 shows a day. Tyler the Madman rolling in the morning. And you also get Tony Wiggins later on YouTube, wherever you guys get your podcast from. Listening to guys talking about the whole NFL with people who cover their teams every single day. David, we have another one here on the naughty or nice list, and it is a good one. It's from Brett Austin, who says, buy or sell. Naughty or nice. I know it's a little redundant with Lab, but I don't think you can have too many receivers that beat one-on-one consistently. Keenan Allen re-signs with the Chargers in 2025. Feels like that may have been an unspoken plan all along. I'm going to do a hard naughty on the first part of that there, or the last part of that there. Keenan Allen's feelings were hurt legitimately. It seemed like, at least from the outside looking in. They asked him to take a pay cut. He said no. I don't think there's anything.
Came off a career year. I'm not taking no pay cut.
Absolutely, but it did not feel like the feelings were great. The vibes were not great with Keenan Allen as they shipped him off for a 4th-round pick, obviously. So I don't think, I'm going naughty on that part of it. As far as the prospects in 2025, David, and what he could add to this team next year when he heads into unrestricted free agency, you going naughty or nice?
Yeah, I mean, and this might hurt some feelings out there, and I love Keenan Allen to death. I mean, and just as evidence of that, my wife got me a signed Keenan Allen picture, which is fantastic. In case, you guys are listening, I just showed a picture of my Keenan Allen signed picture. But Keenan Allen here is 33, going into his age 33 season. Also, he just made $18 million last season. I don't think that there's any way that the Chargers are going to bring him back. I just don't know if they're going to allocate that amount of resources to the wide receiver room. And, I think it just has to depend on the money. If you're really interested, I think if it's money wise, it's got to be in the $8 to $10 million range for me to be comfortable with a 33-year-old wide receiver that is still dealing with injuries, that missed games this season, that also only had one 100 receiving yard game this entire season. And of course, that happened against the Detroit Lions about, a day ago. So yeah. Keenan Allen, unfortunately, has not been the same exact type of player, not been as impactful as he has been throughout his career. And I just think that you got to understand that the best days for Keenan Allen is probably behind him at this point in time.
Yeah, and I don't know if people, would question that part of it. I think the thing that people would question as far as what you're seeing from Keenan Allen this year is, okay, how much of that is him being on a really terrible
Fair.
Bears team with a quarterback who's very much still trying to figure it out over there. And also, he's the guy that averages, when he has played, the second most receiving yards per game on the team, only behind DJ Moore. And yeah, you think, okay, it does seem like he's slowing down. He's not really making that kind of impact. And then you see him go 9 for 141 and a touchdown on Sunday. And you're like, well, damn, it does seem like a dude who still has some juice. Obviously has the connection with Justin Herbert, and that chemistry is already built in. I'm sure they could go out there and still do it blindfolded the way those two guys had it down at the end of their time together. But at the same time, does he fit, right? Like, both guys probably between him and Lad McConkey are most effective out of the slot. He doesn't help your problems as far as the deep issues that you have and having legitimate deep threat on this team. Keenan Allen this year, 54% in the slot. Lad McConkey, 71% in the slot. That adds up to more than 100, right? So it's not as simple as having one guy here and it just pushes the other guy out. Both of those guys can play outside. And the Chargers have really struggled against man coverage. That's something that Keenan Allen could still really help you with. It's just going to, I think he added the kind of the fuel to the fire here, because he in a public podcast said, basically, for me in 2025, it's either staying with the Bears or ending up back in LA.
Yeah.
Now you can interpret that many different ways. What does that mean? Back in LA to retire, back in LA with the Rams, you're going to be back with the Chargers, even though there was a lot of hurt feelings there at the end. Hard to say. It's hard to imagine it happening right now. I mean, the Chargers were interested in keeping him around. We're going to let him stay if he took the pay cut. He didn't. And now we're in a situation where he's getting older. He's still missing games. And it's hard to know what you would get out of him in 2025. But it's just, you just know, hey, well, I think with him and Justin Herbert, you could get one more good season. It's hard to say right now. But AJ has a naughty or nice for us here, and it's the last San Diego Charger will be around in 2025. So we were talking about Joey Bosa, the last standing San Diego Charger. Hey, maybe Joey Bosa leaves. And then Keenan comes back and you still have one. But it's hard to imagine, David, we're going naughty or nice on this. Like, it feels pretty naughty to think that with what he's done this year, even in maybe, what's going to be his healthiest game since 2021 when he played 16 games. I mean, he could play 14 games technically this year.
Yeah.
That he could still be able to justify what that cap number is going to be in 2025, which right now, according to Over the Cap, is $36 million.
Yeah, I mean, $36 million for 5 sacks, 28 pressures, 2 forced fumbles. I'm sorry, that math just does not equate. And sure. I love Joey, and I've been a huge advocate for him, and I really hope that he's able to finish the season strong and make a big impact in the playoffs and maybe change our minds a little bit. But my faith that is going to happen is very, very little. It's just based on what we've seen. And Joey's out there. He's playing. He's not himself. He's not 100%. I think it's pretty clear to everybody that he's not 100%. I appreciate the fact that he's going out there and battling and trying to give his team as much as he possibly can. And like I said, I genuinely enjoy Joey as a person. I think he's been very candid with everybody, letting you know kind of who he is, what he's been through. And I think that's been great. And I think he is a leader of the team for sure. But $36.4 million cap space hit in 2025 is just not something that I can see the Chargers undertaking, even with the incredible amount of cap space that they are going to have. It could go from incredible to outstanding if they do not bring back Joey Bosa in 2025.
Yeah, they'd save $25 million, and the dead cap hit's only $11 million. It would put them over $100 million in cap space per over the cap. The hard thing is you have Khalil Mack also heading into free agency next year. Are you going to let both those guys walk? Is Thule ready to be that guy for this team? I think all of those answers are unclear right now, making Edge a pretty sneaky need, potentially even in the first round next year, depending on how it plays out, even with $100 million in cap space. But I think that's where Aether thinks, hey, what are you going to do in the first round? And maybe something that could surprise us and probably upset a lot of people.
Daniel, David, this is Aether. Bio Sell Monday. Coach Harbaugh is taking a guard in the first round this upcoming draft. I know Chargers fans are going to hate me for this, and I know they're going to hate Coach Harbaugh, but I just have a feeling it's going to happen. I am buying it. What do you say? Thank you. Love you.
All right, David, naughty or nice?
I am going to go naughty. I don't think that's going to happen. Also, I just think it's way too early to be thinking about what's going to happen in the 2025 draft. I mean, like, who knows? Because the Chargers, are, like we just said, are probably going to have $100+ million in cap space. And who knows? What's going to stop them from going out there and buying the best interior offensive line that money can buy? Absolutely nothing. So
availability, right? Who's
availability, right? You got to have the right player, and they got to fit the scheme and all that.
The talent has to be out there and leaving their team and not getting re-signed to their team, right?
Correct.
That's a big
but
thing.
if they're available, the Chargers will be able to offer them a very competitive contract. So I think that we'll see what they do. I think that's going to dictate their approach a little bit in the draft as far as their first round picks. And hey, who knows where they're going to draft? Because right now it could be in the teens. And then, of course, if they do damage in the playoffs, it could be the late or mid to late 20s. So we'll see.
And I think I'll go naughty as well, just because it's so hard to know who the best players are going to be around that time. I think to what Athir is saying here, though, is that don't be surprised if, just like when everyone's doing a Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors conversation, that Jim Harbaugh is not having an offensive guard conversation when you think he might be going tight end. And you think he might go
not after this year? I'm not.
you can't be surprised by it. So I guess it really is nice in that way. Don't be surprised.
Nice.
He's already shown you this year that he will go trenches over flash,
and he told us,
and he's not going to feel bad about it because he thinks that those are his weapons as well, just like Scott Matlock. I'm going to naughty this for now, but it wouldn't surprise me. A lot of this is going to have to do with what they do in free agency. But I think to the point, only the guards that you have under 20, the only guards you have in 2025 under contract right now, Zion Johnson, Jamari Sawyer, and Jordan McFadden. And that's not a group anyone feels super confident in. It just feels like there's going to have to be a total makeover in that interior going into next year. You're not going to have Trey Pipkins, Bradley Bozeman heading into free agency. Zion Johnson probably not going to have his fifth-year option picked up if I had to guess, because that has to be decided after this year. And you go from there, but there's also other positions. Tight end is the one that a lot of people say. Edge rusher, sneaky. Defensive tackle, sneaky.
Yeah.
I mean, wide receiver, corner. Like, there's just so many positions where you could probably make an argument for it, but I don't think any of us should be as surprised at this point if Jim Harbaugh doesn't care about your arguments and wants to beef up in the trenches. But that's going to wrap things up for today's show. Thank you guys for getting in the festive holiday spirit with us today and for always making us your first listen. To make sure that you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. And you can also find the show every single day on all of our social media. On Twitter, at LockedOnLAC, where we put out buy or sell posts and fan mail posts, which we'll probably do tomorrow too. You can hit us up at LockedOnLAC for that. On Instagram, at Locked On Chargers, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. If you guys want to call in, like Jackson and Athir, for tomorrow's fan mail show, we'll at least get into some fan mail questions tomorrow. You can call in to 323-524-7924. Give us your 30-second Chargers question, and we'll try to get it on the show. But, David, a lot to feel good about. Chargers can wrap things up this weekend. The magic number is 1. I think the biggest question on all our minds is, are we going to see JK Dobbins back this week? So we have a lot more to get into this week. Make sure you guys are back with us tomorrow because it is your team every day. But until then, take it easy and go Bolts.